Hey guys, we're gonna talk about the gadgets in the event pre-storm protocol, and we're gonna take a look at assistance as well. Let's start off by looking into gadgets first. Here there are 4 different types of gadgets. One for Blood Tide, one for Dynamo, one for the follow-up team called Extra Action, and one for the Impromptu team. Depending on what team you decide to bring into this event, you have to establish yourself the build, right? If you play Blood Tide, you only want items from the Blood Tide. That's the general idea. Once you establish yourself a good enough item build, there are some tricky things. For example, here in my Blood Tide lineup, I'm gonna have a Dynamo piece. More onto that later. First of all, these items, they come in, I think, 3 different rarities. Yeah, you can see the background from this item here is blue. Those are the worst items. This item has a purple background. Those are at second place. And the final items that you aim for are those with a golden background. Now, what items are the best? What items are good? How do I identify what is a good item or what is not? Of course, as I said, if you play Blood Tide, you want items from the Blood Tide mainly. The rarities play a role. But there are of course core pieces for each and every lineup. For the Blood Tide team here, for example, this bottled anomaly is the best piece in the game. You can see that this increases your critical hit rate by 30% if at golden rarity. Critical hit rate is the best stat you can possibly increase for every single team, every single character in this game. Profits the most by having his critical hit rate increased. That is better than ultimate might or whatever you want to name. Critical hit rate is the best. So this is going to be the best piece. Another hint as to how you can realize that this is the core main best piece for your Blood Tide setup is that it says when in the first slot. When an item says when in the first slot, then that means that is the core piece and that is what you gonna build everything around. Basically, it is in fact mostly about the critical hit rate increase. Every single archetype has one of those pieces. Here, for example, for the Dynamo lineup, this Tesla coil is the best piece. You can see that this increases your critical hit rate, right? As you guessed. So if you play Blood Tide, this is one of what you truly want to get your hands on, and this is going to be the best item. And every single archetype in the game has one of those items. This is what you aim for to get at golden rarity, and at the end of every single run you are asked to take one item with you to the next run. Those are the items, right? For Dynamo, Tesla coil, and for the Blood Tide team, it's the bottle anomaly. Cool. Now, this is the first slot here in your item build, the one on the very top left. And this is where you want to put your first piece in. In my case, we go over the example for the Blood Tide. So, this will establish you the piece that you see here in the middle. You're gonna click on that piece. And this is gonna tell you that you want to, and it's gonna show you, by the way, here at the right, there's Fury. You want to have items in your lineup that increase the Fury. This Fury caps out. You wanna cap this out at 20. You can see this at 10, 15, 20 Fury points. Gain Blood Tide plus 10, 15, 20. So you don't want to have more than 20 Fury. That is the very, very first thing that you accomplish with every single build. Here, for the Dynamo piece, you see chain, you see the picture. Now you know that you want to put items here into your lineup, as you can see with this chain ability. Alright, this one tells you that here at the start of the round, and if at 5, 10, 15, see this for example caps out at 15, so you only want 15 points of chain to get the maximum efficiency out of your item build. Now of course if you like play this on the highest difficulty, like on the very last map and stuff, it will happen to you that you will go over those 20 points. Let me give you an example. So if I would only build this around the Blood Tide archetype, right? Let's pick an archetype item from Blood Tide and switch it out with the Tesla coin. Now you can see I'm at 23 Fury. Of course, I was once at 30, then I was at 26, and now comes in the actual build, something that is very, very interesting, because now you know that when you look at this and you read this through, that you cap out at 20, you don't need anything more than 20, and this is where you can change items out and put other items in that you only go with for the stats, you know. For example, as you can see me doing this here, I have this one bottled anomaly because it gives me crit, but yeah, so I wouldn't need this necessarily a second time, because if I put it in a second time, or if it's not in the first slot, right, then I won't gain this effect, and that seems like not the most efficient way to go. But if my item build goes over 20 Fury anyways, then I can switch other items out to reduce the Fury and gain additional 15% critical hit rate, right? I want to gain as much critical hit rate as I possibly can while still remaining my 20 Fury stacks. That is the most important thing. And here you can see that, hey, I have 23. Now I'm gonna look for an item here that would reduce my Fury. And I can take a look here. This casket here, I can see this gives me 4 Fury. I don't want to lose 4 Fury, because then I would go below 20 Fury as I only have 23. So I'm gonna look for an item that lets me have 20 Fury, but gives me better stats than like penetration rate. For example, I look for an item, I want something that gives me crit rate, like this Tesla coil. Even though it isn't even for the Blood Tide team, that doesn't matter, right? It will still give me the 30% crit rate, and that is what I want the most. So I'm gonna put in this item with 30% critical hit rate, switch one of my items out, and you can see, boom, I lost 3 Fury, right? I got rid of 20% plus penetration rate, and what I gained is 30% critical hit rate, which is much more beneficial. And this is how you go about building your items. The very first step that you do is you're gonna find a piece, any piece that belongs to the archetype of the team that you play. If you play Blood Tide, you look for any piece, doesn't matter what it is, that is from the Blood Tide archetype, and you put it into your first slot. Then you will unlock this, you will see, hey, I need 20 Fury. Now you're gonna put in items that have this effect here. Like, for example, you know, for every 2 Dynamo or Blood Tide pieces, gadgets that I have equipped, I gain additional Fury. And I want to equip multiple of these items so that they stack their effect on top of each other. That every time I equip 2 pieces for Blood Tide, I gain additional Fury. That's why you can see what I did here. I have 3 of these sulfur orbs, because I wanna, as I said, stack this effect that for every 2 Dynamo or Blood Tide gadgets I get additional Fury. That's why I have 3 of those. Then this one here, the Critter Cage, gives me Incantation Might, and it does the exact same. For every 2 Blood Tide pieces I gain Fury. Here this tooth, right, gives me 2 Fury points flat. By the way, I can mention this right here, this cracked molar, this tooth, is the second best piece that you can possibly have for the Blood Tide build because it increases your max HP by a total of 40%. And also it gives you 2 Fury flat, which is very, very good. And you know, so you put in a blood type piece, anything, then you gain access to this. You see where it caps out, and then you find items that gives you, in my case, the stacks that you want to stack, and that says for every 2 dynamo, right? I think you get the point. You stack Fury or whatever you need to stack for that matter until you cap this piece in the middle out. And the moment you go over your cap, you can remove items like a Sulfur Up that would only give me allied damage bonus plus 20, that's not that great, and you put in items in exchange that give you critical hit rate, and that's how you build your build. There you go. If you're not sure, like, oh, how many Fury would this item give me, blah, 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 right, then you know, you can just try. For example, here, let's see, would this egg give me? No, see, now I fall under 20%, that's not what I want, so I put this item back in, and with a little bit of switcheroo, you will figure the optimal item build out if you follow the things that I've just told you. And you can do this with everything. If you play Dynamo, you put a Tesla coil, a golden one if you have one, at the very start. That's the best piece. Boom. You see here, you scroll down, 15 of those chains. I have 20. Now I can switch out one of my items for something else that would give me better stats. Here, Incantation Might plus 40%. That's a golden item, that's very good. That's better than allied damage bonus plus 20. So I go ahead and switch that out. Boom, right? Again, the most important thing, the one that you want the most, is the crit rate. Here are also items that give you only very, very good stats. They don't belong to any archetype, and they don't stack anything like this chain or the Fury for Blood Tide, like this one, the Golden Scales here. But you can see, it doesn't have an archetype, it doesn't stack Fury or chain or anything, but it gives me critical damage plus 20%. If I would want that, then I can use it as long as I hit, for this case, always the cap, right? The 15 cap. So if I would want critical damage, I can go this route. Boom. I'm still over my cap of chain, but now I gained critical damage, which is a better stat than what the Incantation Might would be, for example, you know. And this is how you figure out the best possible build. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that some pieces only have an effect that when they are at the beginning of the lineup, here like this, when in the first slot and activating Blood Tide, right, then you have to put this one in the first slot. You can see here it's the same item. When it's not in the first slot, it does not have an effect. So there you go. That is all about items, right, and how you figure this out. Look at the archetype, look at the stats, look at stacking effects, see what you have to stack, and you see Fury has to be stacked. You scroll down, you see it caps at 20. There you go. I think I explained enough about this, so let's take a little bit of a look into the assistance as well. So here you go. There is a very easy rule of thumb. If you're in case you are wondering, like, oh, there are so many assistants here, so many different things that they do, what am I even looking for? What am I going for? That is very, very easy. You can always, like, what they do necessarily doesn't matter. What the key point, what you look out for here is that you gain stacks of off-field support. Every single stack that you gain of off-field support increases your damage output quite significantly if you stack it enough. When you are in battle, you deal more damage while you fight against enemies, and that is what you simply want to stack as much as possible. You will realize most of your assistants, they will all only give you 1 stack. Here you can see this. Gains 1 stack of off-field support. Grants 1 stack of off-field support. Grants 1 stack, you know, you get the point. So from my experience, what I've seen is that you look at the names, right? Foundation employee W, Sanctuary Mechanic S, and you can also see that they have the same kind of rarities as your items have. And the ones that you are looking for are, at least in my experience, the Xeno ones. The Xeno Captain and the Xeno Veterans. Those are the best, because they grant you not 1 stack of off-field support, but 5 per assistance. You will have, I think, 4 assistants, and if all 4 of your assistants give you 5 stacks of off-field support, that is very, very good. Of course, if you would happen to stumble upon assistants that give you more than 5 stacks, you of course take this, right? Whoever assistant grants you the most amount of stacks of off-field support, those are the ones that you take with you, right? Here, Xeno Captain, 5 stacks. Xeno Veteran, 5 stacks. Another Xeno Veteran gained 5 stacks of resistance, and he only gives me 1 stack. So you see, not every Xeno guy gives me 5 stacks, but you get the point. That is what you look out for, the off-field support stacks in battle. Let's go back to items one more time real quick. And when you're out on the field, you should, of course, you loot everything that you find. And I found this item here, Linden Leaf. That is very, very good. It gives me plus 30% critical hit rate, right? If I would be now above 20 stacks of Fury, I would, of course, want this to be in my lineup. They're also very, very bad items. How would you identify a bad item? This one here, for example. Damage taken reduction, plus 20. Good. But when Blood Tide Insignia is in effect, which is it gives me Chaos plus 3 points. That is an item that you don't want, because you don't want to stack Chaos. You want to stack Fury, right? So this item doesn't necessarily make any sense. Of course, you also profit from Chaos points, but they don't increase anything that Fury wouldn't also increase. So in the end, these Chaos points are completely useless, and what you want is Fury. So a Blood Tide archetype item that gives you Chaos is nonsense. That's how you identify a bad item, for example. Yeah, stats, of course. This is the same kind of thing. If you play an extra action or a follow-up build, you don't want to stack Fury, I believe. At least, wait a minute. Follow-up build. I didn't establish. Yeah, here, this is. Yeah, you see here, this is a follow-up build, quote unquote. I just checked it. You want to stack Chain. You don't want to stack Fury. So this cognitive booster would also be an item that is nonsense. It's bad, and yeah, that's how you identify which items you don't want in your lineup. It's all about stacking what you want to stack and the stats that it gives you. You know, for Blood Tide, increasing max HP is like the second best thing that you can do. But remember, critical hit rate, that is like the true juicer, and that is what you want as much as possible for. And you can see right here, now see that I checked my items a little bit. I can min-max my build here easily, because I see this gives me 15% critical hit rate. It doesn't give me any Fury though, you can see the 0. I just discovered I have this item here with plus 30% critical hit rate, so I go and switch these. See, still, even though it, that is because I lose a Blood Tide. Okay, see, now I have a lot of items here in my build that give me that give me points of Fury +1 for every 2 Blood-Tide archetype items I have in my lineup. If I would now switch one out, then I would lose points. That makes, of course, a lot of sense. That is what I now didn't think about. But you see, this is how you go about your build. You can try a little bit, see how you min-max your stats, but always be at the cap that for whatever you have to stack. And that's about the video, guys. I hope that was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate that. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.